Sweet.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, she made notes, huh?
Oh, not really.
Can you see well there?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna write a book?
Yeah. I
That
thought
would
it
be
would
nice.
be, I'd always wanted to write a book. So I always thought it was interesting that I came to be the way I am
Yeah.
with such different pasts. Like you guys both have very different pasts, and then my mom's parents also have very different pasts.
Right.
And I always thought your stories were very, very different and really interesting. So I've always wanted to kind of write down your stories, but kind of immigrant grandparents and great-grandparents from all over Europe came to create me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like my views in
Your
my life.
background.
Yeah, so I always thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
But that's why I wanted to do this. So why don't we start? What if we kind of went back and forth? First of all, I don't know when either of you were
Let
born.
me turn off that.
Oh, okay. Do you want me
The
to turn off?
background music.
Background music.
Well, it's like a movie.
It is a movie.
Yeah. It's moving
Mhm.
constantly.
Yes.
Time is moving all the time.
Mhm. But when were you guys? What were the dates? I mean, I know the September
yeah.
29th and February 5th.
20.
24th.
Oh, 24th. Oh, I'll be back in Minnesota February 24th.
No
Oh,
kidding.
so we'll celebrate.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
doctor's appointment that day.
That's great.
Mhm.
Okay.
But what was the year? that you were born?
1928
And
and
Papa?
1923.
23? Interesting. Okay. And so, could both of you tell me kind of what your family structure was like growing up? Because I'm American, and I feel like I've lived a very typical American life, and I've always been intrigued by how people outside of America have grown up.
Okay, start.
You start.
Okay, my family consisted of my mother, father, and 2 sisters, and myself. That
Did
was
your-
our immediate family.
Okay.
Then on my mother's side,
Mm-hmm.
there were, let's see, 5 siblings. And
So
on
there's
my
6 people
father's,
total?
what?
6 people total? Or 6 siblings?
people.
Okay. So she had 5, okay.
Mhm. And I remember my grandmother too, my mother's mother.
Mm-hmm.
She was quite elderly. And on my father's side, there were 8 children.
Did you live with any of the other aunts and uncles, or did your grandparents live with you at all?
No, they didn't live with us, but during the war we moved into a village where our grandparents were living.
Is this Marashwarshahe?
Marashwarshahe was a city,
Oh.
and it's now Romania, and it's called Târgu Mureș. T-A-R-G-U, Mureș, M-U-R-E-S.
So you grew up in the city.
Yes.
So what was city life?
City life was school, and I went to kindergarten. They had no regular kindergarten, but my birthday was September 29th,
Mhm.
and I missed the school, so I was older than most of the children.
Mhm.
And so I went to a, what is that before?
Private?
Preschool? Like a preschool?
It wasn't a preschool, but in there it was here they go, first they go to that class and then first class.
Kindergarten?
Kindergarten.
Mhm.
I went to a private kindergarten because I was old enough, my mother felt that I should be going to school. I may have been not too good at home, so she got me to
Tired of you.
kindergarten.
So she sent you away to school.
Yeah.
So
And
did most kids go to?
what?
Did most kids go to a kindergarten then?
No, they don't.
Oh,
That in public schools was no kindergarten.
Okay.
And I was the middle child in our family, an older sister and a younger sister.
Do you remember do you know what the school looked like? Because I mean I can only picture my own life, so I went to kindergarten where
Yeah.
it was part of the elementary school and you had classrooms filled with lots of
Well,
students.
kindergarten was where we learned a lot of songs, which I still remember in various languages actually.
Oh, cool.
And it wasn't really anything that we learned as far as reading or writing. We more or less played and sang
Mhm.
and recited and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then the schools were divided, girls separate and boys separate.
Oh. Was this wasn't a religious school though?
No, it was a public school.
Why did they separate boys and girls?
Well, the girls were separate and the boys were. This is how it was, I think, throughout all Europe, wasn't it, in Europe? The girls and boys went to the same school in elementary school? Oh,
I think so. I don't know.
no.
Elementary, I don't remember, but later on, we had.
Oh yeah, later on, but in elementary school. And I didn't go into later schools because by then it was the war. So the Jews could not go to school. And once a week, a Jewish man came in. They had religious study. The Christians went in one room and the Jews went in another and were taught. I learned the Hebrew alphabet and Hebrew writing and reading that way once a week.
Mhm.
And then my father, who thought we should know more, had a yeshiva bocher come and teach us some more Hebrew. So we really knew a lot of Hebrew, reading and writing.
Interesting.
Not speaking, but that
Reading.
kind of stuff.
Could you understand what you were reading and writing?
Not
or not
really.
Okay.
Not really.
And this was in public school after kindergarten?
This was
Or just like
that
elementary
was
school?
part of one class in public school once a week.
Mhm.
And that was called religious studies because the country wasn't separated, from religion.
Mhm. Oh, so
Like
there was
in-
religion in state.
Yeah,
Oh.
because every morning we said, "Our Father in heaven,"
Mhm. That prayer, we said that
prayer.
at Breck too.
and the Jews said it as well as the non-Jews.
Was it seen as a dividing sort of?
What?
Was it seen as dividing, or was it just something that you did?
It's something that you had to do when you went to school, when you went to public school.
Mhm.
There were some Jewish schools too. I don't know if there were any for women, but for men there were Jewish schools too.
Was Marashwarshahe a big city?
It has now, right now, when we went there last time, 250,000 people. But that, I'm sure, grew a lot since I lived there. But it was a good sized city, very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of flowers, and the central city was divided for people to go walking every night. Everyone went on the course, so they called it,
Oh.
and promenading.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really a pretty city.
Were there like parades that went down the streets and things
No, no. There was a Roman Catholic church at the end of this long promenade,
like that?
and that had lots of flowers and things in it, and benches
Park,
to sit down,
yeah.
like a park.
Hmm.
And it was long, and then the city, I have some pictures that the city offices were then on one side too of that corridor,
Mm-hmm.
and all the bricks on the roof were hand painted.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it was told that someone wanted to commit suicide and jumped off one of these roofs and broke some of these tiles. It costs a fortune to replace
Oh my
it.
goodness.
So anyway, it was a pretty city, and we were very happy until it started really going wrong. By 1940 it was bad.
Oh, I guess
Okay.
in Hungary that,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then we moved to the village of St. Demeter,
Could you
Saint-
spell that?
St.
Mhm.
Demeter, Demeter. And then from there we were taken to Auschwitz. First we were taken into Marosvásárhely from the village where we stayed,
Mhm.
and then we were put into a factory that was producing tegla,
Bricks,
a non-functioning brick factory, and from there we were taken to Auschwitz.
What did you do in the non-functioning brick factory? Or were you
it was
just
just a
You
place to
survived.
be kept, yeah.
We were just kept there until they had enough
For a transport. They collected the
transports
Jews
to
there.
take the Jews. We never knew where we were gonna go.
And where was this factory?
In Marosvásárhely.
Oh,
They were
So
taken back to
You see, we were in the village, but
Saint
there was
Demeter?
another Jewish family plus my grandmother, grandfather,
Mhm.
and we were all taken into the city with the people from Marosvásárhely.
Was there a large Jewish population in Marashwarshahe?
Yeah. They even had a neologisch synagogue, which is like the
reform.
not
Reform.
exactly like the Reform. They had an organ, but I think the women and men sat separate. So it was like the
Conservative?
conservative.
Well, 'Cause
But then they had Orthodox synagogues, and they had the religious groups too, but people were pretty much assimilated otherwise, except for these very Orthodox people.
But
Even
wasn't
though
your family?
we were Orthodox, but we were like the modern Orthodox.
Orthodox?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So did your father or uncles wear like the black hats?
No,
sort of
no,
thing?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. There was one of them that had a beard, and he was teaching Hebrew school.
Mhm.
He was a Hebrew teacher.
Mhm.
And the rest were, one of them survived and was in Israel. He was dressed like everyone else, but he was Orthodox.
Did
The only religious one was the one that in Israel, the father,
Judy's father?
Judy's father's father. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was my uncle,
Oh.
and he was my cousin.
Mhm. That's right.
So now it's, you want to take,
Wait, one more question. Sorry.
yeah.
So
Don't
Good.
tell her what to ask and what to, yeah. You just
I
answer
don't want
questions.
to take up all
You
the
just
time.
answer questions.
we'll switch. Don't worry. But what? So I remember in like bits and pieces of your family story. And you said that you would light the Shabbat candles every night. Were
Oh,
there any
yes.
other like Jewish rituals that your family did?
Yeah, I have the candle
candlesticks,
holders. Yes, that was my mother's, and every Friday I had to clean those.
Mm-hmm.
No, I cleaned them on Monday because on Friday we lit the candles and they dripped.
Mm-hmm.
So then my job was to take all that wax off.
out.
And Friday we cleaned the house completely, everything. And then we had a Friday night dinner, which was mostly chicken soup and some other dish, and the dessert was mostly fruit, cooked fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And in the village we had a lot of fruit and nuts too, so
Intermission.
intermission. Well, I can't continue.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
and this was just the women who kind of cleaned the house, right?
Yeah, my father was working,
What did
tried to work because he lost his job
What was
when we moved into the village. And he was, my grandparents had a distilling place.
Yes.
What do you
They
mean?
What are you
made
talking
beer
about?
and
Oh.
and beer and vinegar and stuff like that.
I'm really not interested.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
That's my
So they had like a
my
business, or your
grandparents.
grandparents had that?
And that's
Yes, this is Fred Barron, yes.
Was this your grandparents' business?
oh yeah,
No.
yeah, and some of the boys, when there were let's see, 5 boys and 3 girls in that family,
Mm-hmm.
my father's family.
Mm-hmm.
And so he bought up things for that from the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
This village was a farming village, but people didn't live on farms. They lived in the village, and they farmed the animals outside, and they farmed the land outside of the village.
Oh, so you had to kind
And
of
so,
walk.
yeah, but anyway, my father bought up things like that. And then towards the end, he was buying whatever he could, like walnuts, and then we took them apart, and I told you that last
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
And then my mother and sisters were knitting sweaters for the farmers who had wool, wool yarn, and we knitted nice sweaters for them. And they paid us with food, really,
Oh.
with like eggs and milk and stuff like that.
So just to repeat back what you said, so your father bought whatever he could from the farmers to sell in the village or in Marishwarshahe?
Well, he bought at first for that factory where they made
Okay.
beer
Vinegar
and
and
they, yeah, for our grandparents.
Mhm.
But then after a while, I don't think they had any more that distiller or whatever they called it.
Mhm.
The cess jar. You know what that is?
What?
Cess jar. Well,
Yeah, it's factory, but what's the first one?
cess, that means
Brewery.
Brewery. I was gonna say, is
Yeah.
it a brewery?
yeah, but they also made vinegar and stuff like that.
Well,
That's interesting. I never knew that. Were your grandparents or your family well off?
The grandparents were well off. Our
Mhm.
own family was okay until we had to move to the village, and then we were very poor, very poor.
Wait, one more question. What did your house look like?
It was we rented the house when we moved there, but in the
No, in
city,
Marishwarshahe.
in the city we had a nice apartment.
Mhm.
And we drove by there, you remember, it was in a nice neighborhood
Mhm.
and a nice apartment. There were 8 apartments in just one story
Mhm.
in that. It was like the garden was next to the apartments, but the apartments went in, so you didn't look out on the street. There was
Oh.
only one apartment that
That's
looked
out the
out.
street.
And then they had a gate,
Ah, okay.
yeah.
That's nice.
So anyway, that's,
So then, did you move to the village in 1940, or did you move there before 1940?
in 1940, yeah.
You moved, okay.
By then the war was on,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. When Hitler conquered Hungary in 1940 or 1942?
well,
No,
Hungary was an ally of Germany, and they fought against Russia
Mhm.
and together with Germany. But in 1944, in April 1944,
right.
Germany
Took
found
the
out that the war was coming to an end, that Hungary was trying to set out peace feelers,
Mhm.
and they brought in their SS troops and took over Hungary and
Mhm.
shipped 500,000 Jews to Auschwitz.
Mhm.
50,000 Jews were marched to Austria in concentration camps, and
Yeah, that's why it's very. There's not a lot of Hungarian Jews left
well,
because
Well,
in
yeah.
the short time, in that little time,
yeah, they
just about
killed
a
lot.
year,
Yeah, they killed,
they
A lot of
idiots, they had nothing else to do but waste their troops and their railroad cars and all their facilities and taking the Jews to Auschwitz, to killing centers, instead of fighting the Russians.
Mhm.
well,
So this is, you ask yourself,
Mhm.
was Hitler sane? Of course not.
well, but the people who followed him, were they sane?
Well,
They were
were
brainwashed.
cowards, yeah,
I think ignorance and brainwashed,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm.
I suppose it could happen other places too.
Yeah, well, there's a movie, I think it's called The Wave, and it's an experiment, a psychological experiment, about how easy the human race is manipulated into hatred, or for hatred. And so the film talks about blue-eyed people are good, and everyone who does not have blue eyes is inferior.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just in a classroom, and within a day of stating these facts, the students acted differently towards each other. And it affected them on test scores, it affected everything.
Yeah.
It was really, we watched that in Tamatora, I think, a couple times, called The Wave.
Oh, yeah.
I heard of that, yeah.
Yeah.
But, okay, so Papa, how, were you, no. Yeah, tell me about your, like, early life, growing up in Austria.
Well, I was born in Vienna,
Mhm.
and my mother had 4 brothers, and she was born in Poland, and must have come early because she went to German schools.
Oh.
And my father was born in an area between Hungary and Austria. But he too went to German schools.
Why German schools?
Pardon?
Why German schools?
Austrian schools, you know,
Oh.
German-speaking schools,
Ah.
yeah. And my father had a sister and a brother. And my father's brother immigrated to the United States. It must have been before the long before the First World War, and he disappeared. Nobody ever heard from him again. He may have perished on the trip, or you never know, okay? And his sister was killed somewhere during the Holocaust, never found out where.
Mm-hmm.
I had, how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cousins, also all boys. Only my sister was a girl.
The only girl.
Yeah. And of the 6 boys, one managed to come to the United States before the war broke out. And he's the only one that survived. The others were all killed.
Mm-hmm. Did he come to the U.S. like through kinder transport?
He came with his mother. My uncle, his father, died of some stomach disease or something, in a hospital, long before Hitler came to power, or long before Hitler marched into Austria. But in 1938, Hitler marched into Austria, took over Austria, and I was kicked out of school.
But wait, before we get to 1938, what were your family dynamics like? Did you and your sister get along when you were growing up?
Did we get along?
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, I was very little, I don't know. I got along, but I come from a very irreligious family. I have not been bar mitzvahed.
Oh, okay.
I have never been, to the best of my knowledge, in a synagogue with my parents.
So were your parents extremely assimilated? Did they have any
My
religion?
mother apparently came from an Orthodox home, but she was not religious anymore. And my father was never religious.
What did your parents do? Do you know?
My father, well, in the First World War, before the First World War, he was a salesman for a Swiss watch company. And he traveled all over Europe, and he had friends in England and France and in Germany and all over. And some of the friends that he had in England eventually helped my sister go there just before the war broke out and survive in England. Okay? And then my father was traveling, and he liked. He was in Switzerland. I remember having seen cards and all over Europe. And then in the First World War, he became an officer. And after the war, he and his...
Was he an officer in
the Austrian
Austria?
army,
Okay.
yeah. And after the war, he and his brother-in-law started a knitting factory in a small town in Austria. They were making sweaters and jackets and stuff like that, knitted goods. And then the inflation came in, and they had to buy their raw material, the wools and the cottons with dollars, and sell them
American
for
dollars?
worthless
American
American dollars, but sell them in worthless local currency. And in 1 year they went broke. And then we had a retail store specializing in women's stockings.
Was this like a common store? I
No,
guess
it
in
was
Europe, or-
very unusual to have a store just for women's stockings, so specializing in that.
Cause didn't you guys have one in Iowa as well? Didn't you have a stocking store in Iowa?
No,
this
we
was
had
a fabric store.
Oh, it was just
fabric
okay.
store, yeah.
Did you help out in
No.
this store?
I was going to school, I knew very little about it, and I didn't help out. But my
So
mother
how-
helped out.
How old were you when
I was,
you're around?
well, I was 15 when Hitler took over Austria, and I was kicked out of school.
When was the stocking store
Yeah.
open?
Well, then when Hitler marched into Austria, of course, all the Jewish stores were closed up. All the bank accounts were closed, and all the Jews were impoverished. We lived in an apartment on the third floor of an apartment building, and I don't know where my parents got the money to pay the rent for, but they did. And
Did you always live in that apartment, or
Pardon?
where did you live prior to
prior
Hitler
to that,
coming? Yeah.
I lived in another apartment building where we moved there because it was closer to the store, you know. But before that, we lived in a large apartment complex where Beethoven used to live.
Really?
Yeah. And there is still a plaque there today. And when Susan and Justin and I were there a couple of years ago, we took a picture, and it's in the book. You can
And
look
when
at
your
it.
father,
Pardon?
when you went with Gary, he saw that.
Oh yeah, when I went with Gary too, I saw it, of course, and then I saw, do you know about that bee and the door?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the only thing that I have from home, yeah.
So was the B for Beethoven or for Baron?
The bee was for Baron,
Okay.
but it was to cover up unused keyhole.
Keyhole.
Yeah. And so when I went there with Gary, I saw it, and then when I went there with Mom the next time, and we took it off, right? I bought a screwdriver and we took it off.
So it's here.
Yeah.
That's good, as it should be.
Yeah. It
Um,
found its home.
what was your school life like?
Well, I went to, until I was 14, 15, almost 14, yeah. I went 4 years to a Realschule. It was a school heavy on math.
Was this like a private school type thing, or
No,
just
it was a
specialized
public
in?
school, yeah. There were two parallel schools. One was Realschule, it was heavy on math and subjects
Science.
alike, and the other one was history and literature and so forth. I wasn't good at math, but I went there for 4 years, and
Learned.
and then for a few months I went to a business college after for just a few months, and then Hitler came in and I was kicked out.
Wait, so you could go to college at 14?
But it was not, no, I was only 14. It was sort of a pre-business college. It's called Handelsakademie, but it was really, you went there from 14 to 18.
Preparation for
Yeah,
Oh,
preparation.
like how Breck is a preparatory school.
Yeah, preparatory school.
Oh, okay.
But
Yes,
I went there
it's-
only for 2-3 months.
Do you remember anything from there? Because I feel like you were very successful at running Shield as a business.
Not
wondering
really,
if-
because in
You're
2-3
only there.
months, what can you learn? You know,
Yeah.
and there was so much changed, and I went to a lot of other short business classes like that in Sweden too. They sent me for a few months to a business college
After the war?
after the war, yeah, when I lived in Stockholm.
Mm.
And then when I came here, I went to night classes, I took some business classes. So I took a few classes here and there in college. But I really have only 8th grade education.
Do you remember like how you were taught?
How I was taught?
Yeah, like what was the curriculum?
All right, in the Realschule where I went for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
the head of our class, the teacher that was in charge of our class, he was a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Friedrich Neumann, a Jewish professor.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was this unusual to have a Jew as a professor, or was it?
I think it was unusual, but it was a public school. And of course he was kicked out at the same time as I was kicked out, yeah. And
Was it like a lecture, or did you have?
no, he was in charge of one subject
Mhm.
that was German language classes and poetry and, in other words, not technical classes.
Okay. Mhm.
And I went to classes with Jews and non-Jews. There were maybe, I don't know, 10% Jewish students in my class.
Mhm.
And we too had, once a week we had a Jewish professor come in and teach us a little Hebrew
During the public school day.
during public school day. And on Saturday afternoon, they had special services at the synagogue that was just a few blocks from where we lived.
Mhm.
And that was for youth services. And at that service, we were given a pamphlet with a chapter of the weekly Torah
Torah portion.
portion.
Mhm.
And we had to bring that the next week to school to show that we were there.
Oh.
So that's where I went to.
And did your parents know anything about religion, or were you and your sister kind
My
of?
father, yeah, I saw he had Trillim. He laid Trillim, not doing later, but when he must have been bar mitzvah.
Mhm.
And he, of course, knew a lot more about Judaism than I did because he didn't teach me any. And I didn't learn too much in school about religion, one class a week, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, did you guys do any Jewish traditions? Did you celebrate Shabbat, keep kosher, or
we
anything like
didn't
that?
celebrate any, well, once in a while we celebrated, I don't know, Seder,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And I had, my best friend was a non-Jewish guy, and he came to our place for Jewish holidays, and I was invited there for
Oh, that's nice.
Christian. And the way we met is on the first day of school, 10 years old.
Mhm.
And, I sat down next to a guy I never seen before, and he took one look at me and he says to me, "Du Saujude, they picked you picked you." So we
That was the start of a good friendship.
so we started to fight,
Oh.
and then the teacher, this Dr. Neumann, separated us, and we said we're gonna fight it out outside the school.
Mhm.
So after school was over, we both went towards the same direction. The other kids formed a circle around us, and we started to punch each other until we both came home with bloody noses. And his parents owned a beer joint on the corner from where we lived.
Mhm.
But after this initial day, we became the best of friends,
Oh, really?
and we were inseparable until a few months before Hitler marched in. I never saw him again. Except, I'll tell you the story too. When I was there with Gary, when he was in high school,
Mhm.
I showed him the house where I lived,
Mhm.
and it was hot, it was in summer,
Mhm.
and I said to Gary, you know, it's so warm, let's go and have a drink. And across the street I see there was still the sign, this mug, the same name as this beer joint before, you know.
Oh. Mhm.
I said, come on, I know this guy, or at least people that owned it, let's go in. So I sat down there, and I ordered a beer, and Gary ordered a soda. And pretty soon the waiter came and brought it, and I asked him whether this Karl Monk was still there, whether he knows. Oh, he says, Karl is not here, but his brother, his younger, but there were two brothers, the younger brother, Hans, he owns the store.
Ah.
So I said, could you ask him to come? Pretty soon he came, and I introduced myself. Oh, he says, my brother would love to see you, but he's out of the country. Give me your name, my address, and I'll give it to him. So I had a business card, and I gave him a business card. By the time I came home, there was already a letter.
Really?
And we corresponded, yeah, for many, many years. And we saw
But
each.
he was the worst kind of Nazi.
He was a Nazi
Really?
from the beginning. He always went around with a specific clothing that identified a Nazi, with white half socks and shorts. And I knew, he called me, saw you the first day, you know. I know the whole family was absolutely Nazi. So,
How didn't that conflict with being friends with you?
So
That
afterwards,
happened a lot.
yeah,
Really?
yeah. Afterwards, you know, he always invited us. Judy didn't want to come, but
I did
whenever-
not want to
yeah.
shake hands with him.
But whenever we were in Vienna, we got together at least for a while, you know.
Wow.
And then he was an architect. He became an architect. He was an officer in the army,
In the Nazi army?
Nazi army, sure. Became an architect and designed buildings all over the world. As a matter of fact, in New York City, the Austrian Pavilion of the United Nations, he designed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
So
Did you ever ask him about the conflicting aspects of
I knew he was a Nazi, and there's
And-
nothing that he could tell me.
And he said, according to that, he said, what happened to you? I didn't
Yeah.
see you.
Yeah, yeah.
I could never have been a friend of
I
his.
don't think I could have either.
Yeah, but we grew up as kids, you know. We
Yeah, but he wasn't a kid anymore
I
when he
know.
was in the army.
Well, I didn't go after him. He came after me. So anyway, he died soon after we met. So.
That's really interesting. Huh. Okay.
Anyway, that's how it is.
So can we go back to Grandma and can we talk about you
The
living
school.
in the village in 1940 until I guess after?
44,
Yeah.
4 years.
Mhm.
It's a long time.
Yes. Yes. But when you say that 1940 started turning everything bad, what exactly do you mean by that?
I meant that exactly some of our friends no longer dared to be our friends. It's not that they didn't want to, but they didn't dare to do that.
Interesting.
And in the village, they still were pretty nice.
I just want to make sure that it's hearing
Oh, it's too low, I speak.
I don't know.
What do you mean?
I just want to make sure that the sound is being picked up clearly. So
Oh,
Oh, is this recording?
Mhm.
Oh, I see. I was just going to ask you, why don't you record?
check.
Okay.
she's recording it,
Okay.
yeah.
So people didn't want to be your. They were
So
afraid to
they
be
were
friends.
afraid, but we lived in the village and the people were very nice to us. They really respected us. And since we moved from the city, they felt that we were really good people. And I used to help them, and I was bored because we couldn't do anything there.
Mhm.
So aside from knitting, I used to help them and learned a lot about their way of spinning things and weaving things and
Ah.
all that. And my mother was weaving, she was a weaver.
Mhm. Oh, like my mom.
Yeah, yeah.
On looms.
Oh yes,
Or-
her brother was a, he worked with wood, what is that?
Woodworker?
Yeah, and he built a loom for my mom where she didn't have to shift with her feet, but with her hands.
Oh.
And she has woven a lot of beautiful things, which all got lost, of course.
Mhm.
And then when it come closer to, we heard that people get deported, we took some of our things and we buried them, and I think these candle holders were among that, and someone found it.
Wow.
And when my aunt returned home after the war, she found out that these people have things from our home, and they gave it back to her, and she brought it out to Israel,
Wow.
and she gave it to me.
Wow.
Also, there was a needlepoint that I did when I was 12 years old. They brought that survived and they brought that out too
Really?
and gave it to me.
Oh,
It's in
cool.
the bedroom.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You'll have to show that to me. Did your mom sell the weavings that she
She
did?
did
Or try to?
needlepoint, petty point actually. She did beautiful, beautiful petty point, and it was hanging in our house. And then after a while it was gone because we had to sell it, I think. I
Mhm.
never knew what happened to it, that big one that she, it was in the style of the lady sitting on in a fancy sofa,
Mhm.
and the man, and they had these long gowns, and it was just beautiful, and these tiny little stitches she made.
Wow.
She got a prize for that. She entered it somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was hanging in our house, and all of a sudden one day I see, where is that picture? I
Mhm.
think she sold it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Wow. What was this prize from the Hungarian government, or how did? Do you know?
I
I'm
think
just finding
she
it.
entered some kind of, they had a lot of handiwork going on in Hungary.
Mhm.
And in first grade, I also already learned how to crochet.
Ah.
And I crocheted a sampler of various designs, and then we had an exhibit of that after
Oh.
school so that everyone could see.
Mhm.
And I think she belonged to one of these groups where they did a lot of handiwork because she got a prize for that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that's very impressive. That your mother got this prize, but also that she was Jewish and was allowed to
Yeah.
get a prize.
You know that there was a epidemic of this outbreak of some kind of red dots. I don't remember what that was called, but we ended up in the hospital. My two sisters and I, because we both all caught it.
Like chicken pox?
No, it was something else. But anyway, we were in the hospital, and the hospitals were run by nuns, and she became friends with nuns there.
Mhm.
Because she came with us to help. She didn't want to let us just go to the hospital.
Mhm.
So she came with us and stayed with us while we were recovering.
Mhm.
And when we had to go away, we gave her several things of our stuff.
Oh.
The nun took it. I remember I took some of it because we had to carry it to them.
Mhm.
And when my aunt went back to Hungary and to our hometown, to Marosvásárhely, she asked this nun, and she took her down. They put it somewhere in a place where it was very damp and everything was
That's
ruined.
ruined. Oh.
Yeah, but she
She
helped.
kept it.
Yeah. And then when we were in that factory, we were taken from the village. The villagers sent in a huge bread for us that they baked,
Oh, really?
and they put a fictitious name on it so that they won't know who sent it. And we had some bread for a while.
Wow.
Then someone sent in a whole container of sheep's cheese,
Mhm.
and we could have that. In fact, we took that on the train,
Mhm.
and that's what
The
we had to eat on the train.
So when did they transport you from the village back to Marosvásárhely, to the factory?
I don't know, it was, we had Passover in our home. We had to bake our own matzah.
Mhm. Oh.
because there was no one else to bake it. And then on May 10th, we were taken to Auschwitz, May 10th.
In 1944?
Mhm.
But, so what was life like between 1940 and 1944 though? Was it just you were visiting the villagers?
No, we weren't visiting, we were living there.
But you said you were bored and so you spent time with the villagers.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
you had
I
nothing else
was
to do.
really enjoying when they took these reeds out of and soaked them so they can put linen, fix the linen, it dried, and then they had to break it up and the linen, and then they taught me how to spin, and I learned lots of things from them.
And so was this your whole extended family was now living in the village?
No, my extended family was quite big. I think I had 15 cousins or more than that.
Or
And out
18?
of those 15 cousins, 6 survived.
Mhm. So were they still in Marshwarshahe then?
Well, I had 3 cousins who were in Budapest.
Oh.
And they really never made it to camp because they started walking and then the war ended.
Oh.
And so they were safe that way. And then the rest of them were all living in the area in Marshwarshahe.
And so why did your immediate family decide to move to the village?
Because we couldn't live anymore, there was no way to make any living in the city. Jews were not allowed to do this, and they were not allowed to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how did the rest of your family make a living there?
Well, the one was a Hebrew teacher,
Mm-hmm.
a teacher of, and so he kept teaching in the Jewish school.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they did because one of my uncles survived, Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you met him.
Does he have a Hungarian name and an Israeli name?
Moritz.
Oh, I've heard of
Hungarian.
Moritz.
And my father was Geza. They all had Hungarian names.
Wait, Geza is Gedalia.
His Hebrew name was Gedalia.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was Geza and Mihai and all Hungarian names.
Mm-hmm.
All Hungarian.
Did you go by your Hungarian name or
Yeah.
your Jewish
Yeah,
name?
and we spoke Hungarian. We didn't speak Yiddish in the home.
Do you know Yiddish, or did you learn Yiddish ever?
No.
Did your parents know Yiddish?
No, we learned a few words, and then in camp I learned some because we were together with people who spoke Yiddish only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what languages did your family speak, I guess? Was it just Hungarian that your
We
family
spoke only Hungarian, but then the Romanians took over
Oh, that's right.
before one
Before.
war.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Hungarians came back.
Yeah.
So in school, when it was Romanian, we had to learn Romanian songs, and you had to dress in a uniform,
Oh, really?
navy skirt and white shirt and a yellow
Scarf
little
thing?
bandage.
Mm-hmm.
And then they seated us, one Hungarian speaker and one Romanian speaker, so that we
really?
can speak. But I really hardly remember any Romanian because we didn't go that long a time to
Yeah.
Romanian school.
So the villagers, they just spoke Hungarian as well, correct?
Oh, yes,
Oh.
yes.
Was there like a sort of accent with their Hungarian?
No,
dialect? Oh.
no, they spoke. In fact, it was really a very clear Hungarian, because when we went back to Budapest and I talked, they thought I was from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the minute we visited Budapest, and the minute we entered the country, everything came back to me, every Hungarian word.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but meanwhile, if I talk to my cousins in Israel in Hungarian, because they all kept the Hungarian language, I forgot a lot, and I always had to think.
Yeah.
But when we went to Hungary, I spoke
No
just
problem.
like it. It's amazing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How our minds work like
Yeah, we entered the country, and on the road they were selling some cherries.
that.
That was after the war.
Mhm.
And I went and I bought cherries, and then I asked them, where do I wash these cherries so we can eat it in the car, and they told me. And they never thought that I wasn't from there.
Wow.
But when Papa knows some too,
Mhm.
but when he spoke, he asked me, where is he from? Because no one can learn Hungarian perfectly without
Wow.
pronouncing. So yeah, we spoke Hungarian, and Papa didn't speak Yiddish either, of course.
Yeah. Huh. I always thought, or I guess I was told that Hungarian Jews spoke Yiddish,
Oh no,
but I
Some,
knew that you guys.
some do.
there were some really
yeah.
religious people
Yes,
in
some
Hungary.
areas
in-
spoke Yiddish,
And
yeah.
some areas that used to belong to the Slovakian area, like Munkács, and where, what's his name, the writer, you just read his, Elie Wiesel.
Mhm.
In that area, they spoke Yiddish only.
Oh, okay. So maybe
And
that's why.
they were very tough girls in the camp, you know, we were together with them.
Mhm.
And they were such tough girls that and they spoke Yiddish among themselves, and they went and had shoes, and I didn't have good shoes, so I took one of the pair they were laying there, and I was so afraid they'll find out. It was a terrible time, of course,
So-
you know that.
Yeah. So how? I guess did you when was it the Nazis or the SS men who took you into the factory, or from the
No,
village?
that was the local police.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
So the local police, did you have to walk from the village to this factory?
Oh no,
or-
we were taken in by, actually, by horse and carriage,
Oh,
yeah.
but there were cars.
They
They-
were what?
There were cars at that time, correct?
There were cars, but not a lot. There were cars, sure,
Okay.
but from the village, they had to go by horse and carriage.
So you were taken by horse and carriage to this factory. How long were you kept in this factory?
3 weeks.
Did your your extended family also end up, or some of your
Yes,
extended?
everyone, everyone we knew, and some. The whole Jewish community was gathered there from Marosvásárhely and the outlying areas, because Jews lived in villages around, in other little villages too.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do for those 3 weeks?
We just existed, really. There was nothing to do. We were afraid and waiting to see what happens.
Did people pray? Do you
Maybe
remember?
some did, but we didn't. We stayed with our family. I had some friends and we got together, some girlfriends, and we went and had washed our hair and all that together. But even cleaning ourselves, there wasn't much to be done. I mean, there wasn't enough area to
do that.
and not enough privacy either, because people were sleeping on the floor. We were allowed to bring some sheets and stuff, and it was all on the floor.
What did the Hungarian police tell you that you were, where they were, did they tell you where they were taking you, or did they say,
No.
this is what you'll need? It was just...
I remember we arrived and we were the driver of that horse and buggy, and I sat down on our belongings and I started crying, and he said, oh, you don't cry, it's gonna be worse. He wanted to cheer me up.
Wow. So there were other peers your age in this factory as well?
Other people?
Other peers, like other people your age as well?
Oh, everyone. I mean, everyone came with their families. So that this friend of mine was my great uncle's daughter, and the other one was another one I knew from school. So we got together once and we went and washed our hair, and I don't know that we did get together once in a while, but there was just waiting with the family to see what's next.
Could you hear anything from the outside world? Did you
No.
know what was happening?
No.
So what happened when, who came to bring you on to the, I'm assuming the train cars?
Yeah, we had to walk from that place to the trains.
And
And
who
it
came and
was
told
the
you?
police with these feathers in there. The Hungarian, some of these police had round hats and feathers from not chickens, but the rooster
Roosters?
feathers. Yeah.
Oh.
And they walked with guns, and we were in lines of 5, and you could hear, it was early in the morning, no one was on the streets, no one, they must have had them stay inside. And you could hear all these steps going, a whole row of people, and then they told us we shouldn't bring anything of value on board. So things we left behind, these police were looking through it. So
how did they come and get you? Like, did they
just said,
storm in?
they said we are getting out, come and line up in 5s, and that's
So was it your immediate family that stood in the line together?
yeah.
And so then you were just put right on the train cars?
Yeah, then we walked to the train station, and everyone had to squeeze into one of these cars where they transported animals before. There was a little window on top, so, and that was covered with wire.
Cattle cars.
Cattle cars.
Yeah.
And as many people as they could get into that, so that we could not even sit down. Some people had to stand and some people could sit, and then they changed off, and every family, men and women and children were in that car.
Do you know how long you were in the car for?
I'm not sure really, but we didn't know where we were going. We had no idea, never heard of Auschwitz. We had no idea whatsoever. So my mother could speak German, and we looked out the window once in a while. They asked her to go and look and ask for water or things like that, but we never got it.
Were you moving at this time?
Oh
Or you
yeah, we
just...
were moving, and then we stopped in places, and she saw someone outside and asked, would you bring some water? When we were already out of Hungary, and I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
sure which way we went, because this was in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And we have never been in Poland before.
Mm-hmm. So what happened when you arrived at Auschwitz?
Well, they stopped, and it was the strangest thing. Strange, they had a platform, and there were some men in striped outfits, and they were Jews, and everyone was yelling raus, which means get out, get out, get out. So we
Mhm.
did get out and had to line in rows of 5, and they said we will get food pretty soon, every row got 1 dish. So we had the dish, but we had no food. So then they just herded us and we had to walk off that place where we arrived. And then this elegant Nazi man, that he must have been Mengele, but I really don't know for sure. He was a doctor.
Oh.
And he looked at everyone and pointed, go this way. And what's his name? David's mother was with us too. You know, David's, my cousin's mother was
Mhm.
with us too. And so we walked, and they separated the men. The men had to go on one row and the women on the other row, and then he looked at us 3, a mother and 4.
4.
We were 4.
Mm-hmm.
And the 5th was David's mother, and she was a little tiny lady. He said left, go left to her.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, he said for our 3 sisters to go right,
Mm-hmm.
and then was pointing my mother left, and my mother said, these are my children in German,
Mm-hmm.
and he let her go with us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know if it was a blessing, because she suffered through a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, what did left mean?
Left meant that they took them right away to the crematorium.
To the showers.
Yeah.
Um,
So these were the ones that he considered too weak to work, and they should go right away.
and so...
And my grandmother and grandfather, my grandfather was 93 years old. Moti told me that. I thought he was 83, but he was 93.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother was 12 years younger, and I'm sure that we lost touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
And because they left earlier than we did, they took the older ones earlier. So we never knew what, I'm sure they were right away going into.
So what happened after you went right?
We were put into a sort of a barrack with three 3 rows of thing with just wood where you could sleep. Then
Bunks.
bunks, and then you could get down, and then there was that much room between the next bunk. So there was, and no blankets, nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So you went right into the barracks?
the barracks. We were actually taken in by what was a couple who was Jewish too. They put them to work and they had to do that. And they were yelling, schnell, fast, go, move fast. They intimidated you,
Mhm.
you know. And so anyway, then.
But did you have to, wasn't everyone's like head shaved?
Yes.
And you were
oh,
stripped
yeah.
of like your clothes?
We went to where they said we will take a shower, and we did take somewhat of a shower, and then they cut the hair. And then they said, hang your clothes up and you'll find it later, and put your shoes there. And we came out, they gave us things that didn't fit, shoes that didn't fit. They just threw it at us, go, 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 go. So it was all intimidation.
And then so what, I'm always confused about how you guys and prisoners spent your days in the camps. What?
We had to stand in line 3 times a day
Mm-hmm.
for hours so they can count us. And if someone happened to be tired of standing and just bent down.
So did they tattoo you right when you
Well, no,
got in?
then we had, there was always something wrong. They didn't count right, and then they thought someone was escaped, and then there was a lot of hollering, and with the dogs they were going looking, and it was just frightening people all the time. I mean, you didn't have a moment really where you could relax at all.
Mm-hmm.
Plus knowing now by then what was going on with the smell, it was just smelling with the burning of the body. And so about several weeks after, we were in Lager C with my mother and 2 sisters and I, and Margit was with us, my aunt Margit,
Mm-hmm.
who survived.
I'm listening.
So then they decided that they will, they want to again try to count out who can work and who can't from the whole of
Select.
Lager C.
Selection.
Select, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of confusion because we didn't want to go without our mother, and they didn't want to take my mother and younger sister. But my older sister and I, then those were people who really didn't want, there was shooting going on and all that. So we thought maybe we should go to, and they took us to the Lager B, which was next to Lager C, but it was separated with electrified wires. Everything was electrified, all the wires were electrified.
Mm-hmm.
And so we,
So
that's
was it
where,
just your 2 sisters in?
what?
It was just the 3, you and your 2 sisters were in Lager B, and your
No,
mom was in
only
Lager
my
C?
older sister and I, and my mother and younger sister stayed there.
Stayed in Lager C.
And shortly after that, I think they died. Mm. I dreamt that when my mother died, exactly I dreamt and I knew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really, it was so real that I knew. And
Do you know how she died?
in the probably in the gas chamber. And so anyway, that's when we got numbers sewn on our clothes, and then we were tattooed. And my sister and I and Margit were one after the other. So Margit comes after my tattoo.
What were your sisters' names again? What were your sisters' names again?
My sister one was Margit, but we
Oh.
called her Butzi.
That's what I thought. Because I'm named after Margit,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And this was your younger sister?
My
Your
younger
older.
sister was Viola, which means also a flower, violet.
Oh.
And she was Buba.
Booba?
Butzi, Yutzi, Buba. That's what my mother called us, so that's how everyone called us.
Oh. Okay.
So anyway, then that's when we had the numbers. And after a while, we were taken out, a group of us taken out and spent overnight in some place that was very weird. We didn't know what's gonna happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister and I were in that group. And it turned out that they took us to a work camp near Dachau. First we arrived in Dachau, and then we were taken to the work camp. It was all women work.
Mm-hmm.
And we were together there,
Yeah.
going
Again, where are you?
going out, building
Yeah.
the
Well, that was very
railroad.
nice last night.
It was still dark outside
Yeah.
when we went,
Mara is here now.
and
Yeah.
we walked. Then we arrived at the railroad, and we were putting cables down and using all kinds of tools outside.
Mm-hmm.
The skin from my hand came off, and it was all blue underneath it.
Blue, not red?
No, it was blue, like when the chicken, the skin comes off, it's blue too.
Oh.
But anyway, I don't have any scars from it, but it
So
took a long time to heal, because finally the man who was in charge, he was not in the military or not a Nazi,
Mm-hmm.
so he let us do as much as
I
we
don't know,
could,
Mara,
and
does she
we
have a
could
car?
go to the
Oh, yeah, she
bathroom
has a
once
car,
in a
yeah,
while and
sure,
take it
okay.
easy, and
Alright.
he
So-
just knew that we couldn't do it.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
it was winter, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that's
Bye-bye.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my shoes weren't too good, and we didn't have any underwear, and we didn't have any clothing, so it was really very miserable. That was Gary?
Yeah.
Am I
And-
going to dinner soon?
Pardon?
Do they want me to come home for dinner
He
soon?
didn't say anything, no.
Oh.
Maybe you,
Maybe
what are we
can,
gonna do for dinner?
maybe we can go out.
Maybe we can go out someplace, yeah.
Yeah.
How about the Good Day Cafe? Can
Would
we
you
go
like to go to the Good Day Cafe?
Well, Mom and Dad said that we were gonna, the three of us were gonna go to see the ice sculptures in St.
there?
Paul.
Oh,
We're
oh,
gonna eat at Cafe Latte.
Oh,
I see.
okay,
Okay.
okay,
I think I'll do
yeah.
alright.
So anyway, I was there until this after Christmas.
Did you know when,
I
what,
don't know
like,
dates.
dates were?
I
or,
don't
like,
know the dates. We don't know anything. We didn't know anything. We didn't. No one told us, and the days went by, and you couldn't just keep track
Mhm.
because you were not in that kind of a mood. You just really existed. There was nothing. You
Mhm.
did what you had to, and that's it. And so my sister and I were there. I know that it was Christmas when we left. They took us away from that camp,
From Dachau.
from the Dachau. It was called work camp. And it so happens that a woman in Germany who much later who was doing some research came across that there were three women who survived that camp, and I was one of them.
Oh, really?
And that was a really, I don't know how many we were, because the women's camp was inside a men's camp.
Oh.
And so that we were a small group, maybe 500 or maybe more, I don't know. But that just,
Right.
and she wrote a book about this camp
Mhm.
and named the names. I sent in a picture she asked me to send, and you are on it too.
Oh, really?
I'll show it
Show
to
'em
you.
how
I'll show it to you later. And anyway, to go on, we were taken to Bergen-Belsen,
Mhm.
and that was the most disorganized place we've been to. They disorganized. We slept, I think, in tents for a while.
Mhm.
Then we ended up in a place that it was just terrible. We laid on the floor. We were full of lice. And it was terrible when the British liberated us in April 15th, 1945.
So, what did you do in Bergen-Belsen? What did you do in Bergen-Belsen? Were you just existing there too?
Nothing. We just tried, my sister and I both tried to stay alive. When we left, my mother said, when we left her, take care of each other, take care of each other. So we really tried. But I didn't do a good job because my sister passed away in Bergen-Belsen after we were liberated.
Oh, I thought it was right before.
A week after. See, they came in
Mhm.
and there was no water, no food, no facilities for cleanliness.
Mhm.
And we had typhoid fever, typhus, and she probably had that.
A third of the people that were alive when the British came in died in the next few weeks. So
Mhm.
And they couldn't take everyone out of these dirty places we stayed.
they didn't have any facilities, you know, they didn't
And
know
so
how.
we went out and sat outside because we didn't want to stay in that dirty, bug infested place.
Mhm.
So then they came in with some things, and they did spray everything and our hair and everything so that we were free of the lice. But that was a week, maybe more later.
So what happened between liberation and like what happened during this week?
Well, they were still fighting a war,
Mhm.
and they tried to get us out and find places to put us.
Mhm.
And some people could walk out, but those of us who were already really sick, we couldn't do anything but just sit there. And then when they find, my sister passed away, and that too was a terrible thing, terrible thing for me. That really was the worst thing that happened to me, because she kissed me and she knew she was gonna die. And what I remember when she died, she was, but when she closed her eyes, she smiled. So I had a feeling she was in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
That I always remember, that she just smiled, and then I knew she was in a better place. So anyway, then they took me out of there, and I don't remember how I got out of there.
Could you walk out, or did they have to carry you
I
out?
don't remember. No, I couldn't walk.
Okay.
I couldn't walk. For a long time I couldn't walk. I was so weak,
Mm-hmm.
just skin and bones, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself in a nice room, like a hospital, but it was a military, something for the hierarchy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 12 beds in there, 12 women, and one girl my age and a couple older ones, and not too many really.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Polish lady who must have been a nurse when she was alive, but she was healthy. She was Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
and she was healthy and able to take care of us. And then a Belgian doctor came in every day,
Mm-hmm.
and he ordered, they brought us good food. By then, whatever they could have, I think some of it came from the military. Every day the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we ate it, and then that lady that took care of me and that doctor said that there are people being taken to Sweden to recover, and I must go there. But I didn't think I should go because I didn't know what happened to my father. Maybe he's alive. In fact, from that bed, they took me in a wheelchair to a big warehouse to pick out some clothing for myself and towels and things. And I found a nice big coat for a man, and I thought, I'm gonna take that for my father, so I put it under my pillow.
Mm-hmm.
And I was keeping that, and I said, I can't go, I don't know if my father maybe is alive, and I have a coat for him and all that. And they said, if he's alive, he will find you, you must go or you won't survive. So they talked me into it, and then Hungarian soldiers were there too, so they came up and put me on a stretcher and took me to Lübeck,
Mm-hmm.
and they put me down, and then they had me sit in a sauna. Can you imagine? I couldn't walk,
Mm-hmm.
but it was so hot in there, and I couldn't get up, so they didn't realize that I couldn't walk, so they kept me there for a long time until finally they realized I couldn't walk, so they took me out of there. But by then I was clean. And so when I washed my head, actually, when I was in that hospital room,
Mm-hmm.
it all came out because I had typhus too. I didn't realize that, but and by then I had hair,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a bowl, and I was washing my hair, and all my hair was in the bowl.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then it grew back. By the time I was in Sweden, I had short hair. I have a picture, I have short hair.
Did your hair, like, this is kind
It
of a
came
random
back.
question, but was it the same as it was it
Before,
was, yeah, before?
yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
black, same thing.
But like slightly wavy as well? Or
No, it was straight. I always had straight
straight
hair.
hair? Okay.
Yeah. And so then that's,
How did you get to Sweden, or do you not know?
they, in a boat, they took, Papa went that way too.
Mm-hmm.
They took us on the stretcher and put us in a shelf, actually. I felt very claustrophobic and I was very sick on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard people crying and everyone was sick and it was a terrible trip.
Mm-hmm.
But from Lubeck we went to a place called Norrköping. That's where they took me off.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a school that they made into a hospital,
Oh.
and they had beds.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met a lot of Hungarian women there. Most of them were Hungarian, I don't know how come. There were not too many Polish, mostly Hungarian.
That's interesting.
So then I slowly recovered and was able to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked for people who were school age, and they took me to a school in the north of Sweden called Dalarna.
And how old were you then? Do you remember?
16 and a half.
Okay.
And then I think I was 16 and a half. Then there were several other Hungarian-speaking girls in that school too. And it was like a little castle in the middle of snow
Really?
world, yeah. And we were three in a room. I was in three in a room. I think everyone was 3 or 4 in a room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made friends with the girls there, and we studied health. Our teachers were Hungarian teachers. They
Oh, really?
survived the war, and one was a math teacher from way back,
Mm-hmm.
and one was a Hungarian teacher.
Yeah.
So, and then they had a man who came periodically. He was a German refugee too. And so we had studies and took turns in helping in the kitchen and serving and all that, but they had a cook.
Oh.
And
How
then-
long were you there? How long were you in this school?
I don't remember that, but then my leg was giving me trouble, so they wanted me to go to Stockholm and have my leg looked after.
Mm-hmm.
So I received some mail in the hospital there, and that's where I
You met Papa?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll stop there, and then
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite stories about you guys meeting is when
Oh,
Grandma.
Papa tells it best.
Okay, we'll get to that, but I think that's my favorite story.
Yeah, so that you know by heart, actually.
Yes. Well, Papa, I was wondering if we could start in 1938, right? And you weren't allowed to go to school anymore. And I was just wondering if you could kind of pick up back there.
Well, after I was kicked out of school, I didn't know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
but
Wait, what is the age difference between you and your sister?
my sister is 2.5 years younger than I am.
Okay, so was she also kicked out of school too?
She was kicked out of school. And she had to finish the year yet, only with Jews. They put up Jewish schools until the age of 14. So she had to finish that year in a Jewish school.
Okay.
And I was not working, and I was bringing home, I was going to soup kitchen to bring home a warm meal
Mm-hmm.
for my parents and me, and it was supplied by Jewish community.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1939, my sister was able to go on a children's transport to England,
Mm-hmm.
and just before the war started. And my father, who had high blood pressure and depended on medication,
Mm-hmm.
his doctor emigrated. It was a relative of ours, and a non-Jewish doctor wouldn't treat a Jew, so he didn't have any medication, and he suffered a stroke and died soon. And I was very heartbroken at that time, but in hindsight it was
Almost
yeah,
depressing.
it was a miracle. Yeah, he didn't have to go through what my mother had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, I was working on a railroad in Vienna, unloading pig iron from cars and loading it, and that kept us from being deported.
Why?
Well, the other Jews were little by little deported to various places in Poland or in the East, nobody knew where.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you worked in certain places where they needed you, they protected you from being deported, you see.
Okay.
I'm gonna get that book.
And I rode the streetcar out to that place, to this railroad station where I worked.
From
And
Vienna?
in Vienna, yeah.
Mhm.
I could only stand on the rear platform. Jews were not allowed to ride the streetcar except when they needed to go to work. And then they had to stand on the rear platform. We had a big J sewn on our shirts and everything to signify that we were Jews. And when we met on the street, the sidewalk, when we met a soldier, we had to go off the sidewalk in the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we had food stamps for everybody, but the ones for Jews were stamped with a big J. So anything that was in short supply was not sold to Jews. Besides, Jews were only allowed to go shopping during 1 hour during the day, I think from 12 to 1 at noon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were not allowed to have a telephone, a radio, and of course no cars or bikes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And once in a while, when there was a threatening action, we were hidden. We didn't dare to sleep in our apartment. We had to take in two other couples into our apartment,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could stay there, but we were afraid, so then we were hidden by some friends, non-Jewish friends. It was dangerous for them too, because if they would have caught them, they would have put them in a camp. So it was was not a very happy situation. My father was dead, I was there with my mother only, and finally we got a hold of a man who was a farmer in Hungary and came to Vienna to smuggle some Jews to Hungary for money. So we scraped together our last possessions and gave him some money, and in November 1941 my mother and I went over the border into Hungary. And I was caught pretty soon in a small town. I didn't speak Hungarian, of course, but they suspected me of being a burglar because something was stolen in that community, and they thought I had something to do with it. And I didn't understand it, but they had a translator, and after it came out that I couldn't have done that, I was too stupid. So the judge says to me, well, nothing is going to happen to you, all we're going to do is send you back to Vienna. I said, then you might as well hang me up here, you don't have to send me back, this is what they're going to do to me. Is that
Where
what
was your mother?
What?
Where was your mother?
My mother was in Budapest with some relatives that we had there.
Oh, okay.
So, but then the judge seemed to understand, and instead of that, he gave me a paper that I had been arrested and released, and I was supposed to get all the food stamps and blah, blah, blah. And I'm a free man, and I went back to Budapest, and I told my mother, but my mother wasn't there, she was arrested in Budapest, and they told her she's only going to be free if I turn myself in. So of course I had to turn myself in, and we didn't get free. We were sent to an internment camp in northern Hungary. Stayed there over 2 years, and
What happened in internment camps?
well, it was a camp for mostly foreigners that got into the country illegally, also some petty thieves, Jews and non-Jews. And we were sometimes hungry, but we were never mistreated. And I stayed there until end of 43. Then in end of 43, the Hungarians apparently sent out some peace feelers. They wanted to no longer be allies of Germany, and the Germans got hold of that, and they sent in some troops and toppled the Hungarian government and put in some pro-German regime. And instead of I was sent to Budapest, my mother was released for a short time, and I thought we survived. I really was sure of that. And it was like we lived in a home next to the synagogue in Budapest. It was like in a hotel. And all of a sudden the Germans sent in their SS troops and they toppled the government. And I was sent to a penal camp in northern Hungary.
A what
And
camp?
Penal camp. Penalty
Oh,
camp.
okay.
And my mother was rearrested and sent to another camp, and I was sent with one of the first transports to Auschwitz.
Were you also sent in the cattle cars?
Sure.
Were you with your mother then, or no?
No, my mother went a few weeks later from a different camp, but she also was sent to Auschwitz, but she was at the selection at the station. She was sent to the other side and was gassed.
So what did you know anyone when you were transported? You went to Auschwitz, correct?
I never heard of Auschwitz before. I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I soon found out, and the
Well, how
jury,
long? Do you know how long you were in the cattle car for?
the best of my knowledge, we were there for 3 nights,
Mm-hmm.
and better part of 2 days, yeah. And
Did you know anyone?
hmm?
Did you know anyone there? Were there other
Yes, I did
Germans
know,
there,
because
or-
some were from that same camp where I used to stay, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
At this point, had you picked up some Hungarian?
Yes.
Okay.
I was able to speak Hungarian, yeah.
Mhm.
Spoke only Hungarian there because nobody spoke German. Yeah.
Mhm. So, when you got to Auschwitz, what happened?
The same thing as Judy told you, we were selected left to right, and then sent to a barracks where they sure at that time I had hair, so they cut my hair with a strip down to the skin in the middle, and took all my clothing and belongings and everything and gave me a pair of striped shirts and pants and some shoes, no socks, nothing else, and a matching cap.
Mhm.
That was our possession. And every third man got a metal dish for food. And once a day we got some food, and then we had to fight 3 people eat from one dish.
Wow.
And then after, I was there only for a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
I didn't get a tattoo because it took longer than that, and I was sent to another camp called Dernhau, not too far from the old city of Breslau in Middle Silesia. And I stayed there for almost a year until February 1945.
And what did you do in Germany?
Worked road building.
Mhm. Railroad road building or pavements? What type of road building?
The Germans were going, this was close to an area where they had large coal reserves, coal mines,
Mm-hmm.
and they were gonna build some chemical industry there to extract oil from coal for their cars.
Okay.
And we had to widen the road so the trucks could build, the various plants necessary for that. It never got to that because in February 1945, the camps we were marched out of there. The Russians were close, and I was, after a long train journey where we passed the old city of Dresden that was being bombed just a few days before, was still burning when I drove by and I was on that train. And we came to a camp I never heard of either, Bergen-Belsen, in February until I was liberated in April 15, 1945 by British troops.
So, wait, because you were on one of the death marches, right?
I was on one of the marches that turned out to be a death march from the camp in Silesia to nobody knew where. We marched into Czechoslovakia, and there we were put on trains to go to Bergen-Belsen. Yeah.
Did you see any people around when you were walking outside?
Oh yes, there were thousands of Germans going back with their hand carts and their horse and buggies, fleeing from the Russian.
Oh.
and you could see that the war was decided.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sky you could see
Did you
foreign
know
airplanes.
at the time?
What?
Did you know at the time that the war was coming to the end, to an end?
Well, anybody could see that. The Germans were retreating all France, and I'll tell you the story about how I read a German newspaper for a while, for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we were working in a village
Mm-hmm.
and widening the roads, and every morning there was a woman on a bicycle with a basket in front of the bicycle where she had papers,
Mm-hmm.
delivering the paper. The paper was called the Middle Silesian Observer, in German of course, and she was pedaling along the road. The roads were separated from the houses by a fence,
Mm-hmm.
and she leaned back towards the fence, walked a few steps to the gate, opened the gate. It was a long walkway to the houses.
Mm-hmm.
She walked 20, 30 feet to the house, took the paper and threw it to the front of the house, to the entrance. She turned around, walked the 20, 30 feet back,
Mm-hmm.
opened the door, the gate, walked out, closed the gate, got on her bike, pedaled to the next house, repeated the performance.
Mm-hmm.
And in our outfit there was a very smart guy, and when he saw that woman, he observed her for several days or weeks, and when there was no guard looking, he took the paper from, when she was walking to the house, took the paper from that bike
Mm-hmm.
and quickly threw on the ground, put some dirt on there and a stick, and he was working.
Pretend to work.
And then the woman came and picked up her bag, and about half an hour he came to me. I was the only one that could read German there, and says,
Oh.
Fritz, that was my name, I've got the paper. So when we worked in the village, we had latrines.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the guard for permission to go to the latrine, and before that I took the paper carefully and put it under my shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and then I walked to the latrine and I read the latest news that the Germans were retreating in Italy, and they lost North Africa, and they were being back in Russia, and Stalingrad, and the Americans were bombing this city and that, and we could see that's where the Germans are running back. The war is lost. So every morning I read
Read the newspaper.
until one day, this guy didn't make it to our group. He was sent to another outfit. His brother stayed with our group. So before the woman came, we were deciding who should get the paper. Nobody wanted to get the paper, but the brother decided, I'll get it, okay. But as clever as his brother was, as clumsy was the other one. He waited too long, and the woman was on her way back when he picked up the paper, and she screamed, "Aim!" And the guys came running. What happened? He took my paper, he took my paper. She said, for weeks, I'm always short of paper. I thought, I'm going crazy. But I saw him, he took my paper. Who was it, the guy? Had us lined up, and we were all in these striped pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
We all were skeletons, we all looked alike. She couldn't tell who took the paper. So they had us work day and night, and luckily they didn't tell the people, the guards didn't tell the commanding officer in the camp when we came back. They were afraid they would get themselves into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing happened.
Oh, that's
But
good.
for weeks I was reading the newspaper.
Huh. And so so after you were at Bergen-Belsen, what did you do? Did you just exist in Bergen-Belsen?
After
as
I had
well?
what?
Or when you were in Bergen-Belsen, what did
Yeah.
you do there?
I didn't
Nothing.
work, nothing. I didn't do it. I was starving. That's what I was doing.
And then how long were you there then?
I was there from February until April 15th.
Just doing
April
nothing?
15th we were liberated, but we were still there for another 3-4 weeks. Yeah.
Did you ever steal food, or is that how you survived, was to steal food?
Oh, I survived.
Or I guess you can't answer that, but were you stealing food to?
Steal food?
No,
Where from? Where could you steal food?
no one
No
had
one could
food.
steal food. We had once a day, we got in the beginning, in the last few days we didn't get anything. We got a watery soup with some, what was in there? Beets, cattle beets. And there were no more German soldiers to guard the camps. Hungarian troops guarded the camps. But if you got too close to the gate, they shot you.
Really?
Even though the English were still there, yeah. Because there was typhus in the camp, and they convinced the British that they have to keep the
Keep out
people
of there.
out from, yeah.
Did you make any, like this is a weird question, but did you have any like friends that you kind of helped?
Yes, I had a friend. Well, we had, the friends died, or friends moved away the next day.
There
That
was
was
no
a real
way
friends.
to keep up friendship,
Yeah.
everyone for themselves.
Yeah.
If you were together with someone like my sister and I, that was a better way of survival.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even so,
I didn't have
she
anybody.
died.
I didn't know anybody.
There was in the work camp a mother and 2 daughters, and the mother and one of the daughters died, and the one that survived went to the school with me in Sweden.
Ah.
So that's the only one I really knew.
Was she also Hungarian?
Yeah, all the girls were all Hungarian there except a Greek girl from Greece.
Oh. Wow.
And she learned Hungarian because she
Had
was
to.
the only outsider, but she made friends very easily, and she sang beautifully. She was really a nice girl. We were friends with her and with other girls there.
Mm-hmm. And so, Papa, I think I know that when you were liberated, I think you've told me this story before, that you were given like some condensed milk or something like that, but you were too weak to open the can. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened with liberation?
Well, I was given a Red Cross package after a few days. They found thousands of Red Cross packages that the Germans had in the basement somewhere, so the British distributed it, and I got the package. There were all wonderful goodies in there, and I was chewing on some bread and hardtack, Zweibeck, and I got so tired and so worn out from the events, and I took the package and I put it on my head as a pillow, and I fell asleep.
Just on the ground there?
No, I had one of these bunks.
Okay.
And when I woke up in the morning, the package was gone. And the only thing I found was a can of condensed milk. So I took that can and I dragged myself outside, and I found a rusty nail, and I picked up a stone, and I tried to open the can of milk, and I was hammering, and I couldn't open the can of milk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked around and I saw there was nothing but dead and dying, and the tanks that were driving around were of a different color. The soldiers had a different uniform, but everything else was the same as before.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so disgusted, I broke down and began to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there on the ground crying when a soldier walked by and says to me, "Hey Chuck, can I help you?" I just shook my head. But then I remembered I had a sister in England. So I says, "Yes, do you have anybody there in your outfit from Luton in Bedfordshire?" And then he looks at me as if I'm crazy, and he says, "Don't go away, I'll be right back." And a few minutes later he came back with an officer and with a nurse. And the nurse says to me, "Why did you want to see anybody from Luton?" My sister is there. Oh, she says, I'm from Luton, give me your sister's name and I'll go home on furlough pretty soon. I'll find her and tell her we found you. And she took my name down.
Mm-hmm.
And the name of the people that I remember she stayed with when she came to England. And then the officer said,
I don't know.
6 o'clock. The officer said that he was a physician and he was going to try and save me. He took that can of milk away that I was still clutching and carried me into an empty barracks. And he put me down in one of his cribs.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a bed for me on straw and blankets and all that, and said, "Don't go away and don't eat or drink anything except what I will bring you." He came back and brought a big can of Zwieback, just pretty, dry toast,
Mm-hmm.
and a large can of tea. He says, "That's all you're gonna eat." And he fed me in the beginning, and then I ate. And he came back, and for 3 days, every day, he cleaned me up, he washed me, he talked to me, and I think he saved my life.
Wow.
It's a Jewish doctor, he was from London.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mom and I were in London, I tried to remember, I tried to
Yeah.
find him, I couldn't find him.
I don't remember the Belgian doctor that saved me
Yeah.
with the name of.
Yeah. So I never found him, but I think he saved.
And was he the doctor who sent you to Sweden then? Or how did you get to...
How did he? Well, I was still in that camp, and after a few days, I was so weak, they put me on a stretcher into an ambulance
Mm-hmm.
and took me to a hospital, and I was taken care of by German nurses and German doctors.
Germans were now taking care of Jews now?
The
The Germans were taking care of Jews now?
They
Well,
were told to
the
do
only
it.
ones they had there, the English told them, they
Mm-hmm.
threw out the Germans and put in the Jews.
Oh.
And then a few days later, I was taken on a transport to Sweden,
In a boat, just like Grandma?
just like Grandma, yeah.
Mhm.
And then I came into a makeshift hospital in Sweden. And a year later, I found myself in a hospital in Stockholm where we met.
Yeah.
And how did you meet again?
You
I like
know
this
that.
story.
You know
You know
that.
the story?
Yeah.
Well, I was recovering from a stomach surgery. And I was walking, so bent over, and all of a sudden I see two black-haired young girls in their hospital gowns.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought for sure these are not Swedes, and I could hear they were speaking Hungarian among themselves. One had the leg all bandaged up, and the other one had the face all bandaged up. So we got to talk. We talked, I think, Swedish together, of course. And they found out where I'm from. I'm from Vienna, and they are from Hungary. So we spoke Swedish. And we met every day, twice a day at the bench. It was a beautiful hospital and nice surroundings near the water. And spring, and we were recuperating, and it was a good time. And the girls made all kinds of comments among themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This guy
In
wouldn't be so
Hungarian.
This guy wouldn't be so bad if he wouldn't be so bent over, you know. I never let on that I understood. And one
Can
day,
you imagine? And still we got married.
and one day, my doctor said to me, Fritz, he says, tomorrow you can go home. Well, I didn't have a home, but I had a DP camp where we stayed outside of Stockholm. So I went down to the bench, and sure enough, the two girls were sitting there. And I told Judy that tomorrow I'm gonna go home, and that I enjoyed meeting her, and I liked her company, and that I hoped that we would meet again under happier circumstances. And I said all this in Hungarian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how devious?
Yes.
So Judy got so mad. She gets mad easily. She didn't say one word to her. The other girl burst out laughing. She was laughing. Well, I went home and I put my two belongings in the little bag, and the following day I went to that DP camp.
Recovery camp.
And then a couple of days later I was sent to a special home to recoup from hospital stays where they sent people to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on a little island outside of Stockholm, just like a hotel, really beautiful.
Wow.
And a few days later, lo and behold, Judy would show up there too.
Really?
They sent me to
Yeah.
It's
this.
the same one?
Yeah.
So eventually she forgave me.
Very nice of you.
Really? Yeah,
So
and
that's
here we are
awesome.
65 years later, married.
No, but you guys got married in America.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
that's our story.
I brought out this book to show you where you are. I sent her this picture of us when you were in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole family.
I mean, I look so similar there, too.
Yeah, yeah, you are. Of course, he has a beard.
Well, now he does, yeah.
Yeah, he was a cute kid too.
Yeah.
He's still a cute guy. So that's in there, and then this woman, after I sent her that, wrote that it was a great pleasure to hear from you and learn that you received the book from Verbände von Kafferung, über the Lande und Kafferung. I never knew that I was in Überleben, the survivors of Kafferung.
Oh.
There are others, there were 14 of these camps, and this was just a small women's camp. There were 3 survivors. I think it was not difficult to put this together. Oh, thank you for your kind words. I think it was not too difficult to put it together. I always felt it was an honor to put it together. My only fear was that it would be too difficult for survivors' comfort, all the, to, I can't read that, all the,
Too painful for the survivors to comfort all the,
or to confront
confront
all
all the
the
horrors.
horrors, yeah. And then it says again, I was also very, it was also very brave to make available the private family pictures. I didn't want to send it to her, and she asked and asked. And my thanks to you again for the lovely picture of you and your family. The new visitor center, they were building the visitor center there, it's all shown here, and they had an opening. And she says the book was selling in that visitor center.
Oh, wow.
And it has also been well received in the local press. Thanks again for all your help. I hope you and your family are well. Best wishes. And her name was Edith Rhyme. But before I really was agreeing to do that, I really didn't feel like it. But
What?
also when she started asking for a picture, I don't know, I didn't want it because she's a German woman, she's not Jewish. And she was gonna, I just didn't feel like doing it. And then I decided I will do it. And she asked for pictures, and so finally I sent this picture.
Yeah.
And she was very grateful for that. She was a very fine woman. She was a historian. And she lived in the area too where these work camps were.
Oh, really?
There were several work camps like ours where people were working. There are many listed here, men, and there are some women too from other camps. But this camp just survived. And this is a book put together in Israel about Marosvásárhely.
Oh.
But it's in Hungarian and in Hebrew. Yeah, and it shows a lot of pictures and a lot of names of people who died.
Oh.
Then it shows the city too, and that synagogue that was Neologisch synagogue, and all the things that went on before the war, all the young people and the schools. And there is a school picture here. Not that one. Bensi, my cousin Bensi is that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he went to the same school I went, Marosvásárhely, in
Is your
1940.
school picture here or no?
This, I don't have it in here, but it was taken in 1940. Jókai Mór utcai. We lived on Jókai Mór utca. It's about a poet, the name of a poet street. So that he hasn't changed much the last time I seen him. He has the same facial look. You've met him?
Yes.
Yeah, he is one that is hard to take.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've only met him once, and I went with Moti.
Yeah.
And the whole conversation, they spoke in Hebrew, and the whole conversation, Bensi kept saying, she doesn't understand Hebrew, and Hebrew, I kept saying, I understand you, I understand you. And Moti kept telling him that I understood.
Yeah.
That was the whole
Yeah,
conversation.
He is a little also very to the right. See, these are all organizations that people joined in before the war. Young people,
Mhm.
see, they were preparing to go to Israel.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did your family want to go to Israel before the war?
yeah, we would have liked to, but we couldn't.
Why not?
First of all, we couldn't afford the trip,
Mhm.
and second, we just didn't know, whether we will be okay there.
And Papa, was Israel at all talked about in your family? Going to Israel?
My father especially would have liked to go to
After the
Israel.
war started, but not before.
See, these are names, my parents are in here, these are all people who perished. And Betsy was very active in putting this book together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See,
So that's
they-
why his picture is in it.
That could be, yeah. He always asked information on the family because he wanted it to be in this book.
Mhm. Oh, there's a dog in that picture.
Yeah. See, they are all summer camps.
Oh,
Shomer,
Gardner.
yeah, and all kinds of names. This is Shomer also. Then there are all kinds of organizations. They went to the land and learned how to take care of the farms and agriculture
That's
groups.
right. Henrietta Zoll
Mm-hmm.
started camps like that for women, right?
No,
Or
she
she was
started
Hadassah.
Hadassah.
There was
No,
someone
not
else.
Henrietta Soul.
There was another Henrietta who started women agricultural schools
Really?
outside of Israel, but to prepare them to.
Oh,
be
every, I think even in Vienna they must have been
Or
organizations like that.
Zionists, sure, all
Yeah.
kinds of, from
Lots
left to
of
right, yeah.
Zionists.
That's good.
Hatzion, Hanoar Hatzion,
Mhm.
that's
That's
this
a
one.
village in Israel now.
Yeah, these are all preparing to go to
Mhm.
Israel. There are all kinds of, this one is a Mizrahi
Mizrahi,
Chokor.
sure.
And these are all Mizrahi.
Mhm.
These are the more religious
Religious
ones.
ones,
Yeah.
And those are the more communist ones.
Marashahai.
Oh.
These are also Mizrahi.
Ah.
And this one is Hashomer Hatzair.
Yeah. All these were groups that existed
See,
in Vienna.
they all
Yeah.
work towards Israel. And this is the woman.
Ah, is this like a swim team or something?
Let's see, no, maybe it was summer and they Shomer Haverot. Hachshara.
Akshara,
Yeah,
that was Zionist.
that was a Zionist organization.
Akshara meant actually to move to Israel, the Zionist. Akshara, that's what Akshara meant.
In 1933, see,
Mm-hmm.
this is 1934. So they were very active. This is 1937 already. Hachsharai, that too. Mizrahi.
Is this snow? So people are just sitting on the snow?
It looks like winter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hannoar Hatzioni. They are saying goodbye to Chalutz. Tol Eretz Ve'evalo Indulashuk Alkama. When they were going to become Chalutzim and go to Israel, they were saying goodbye to their friends.
Oh.
They were getting ready to go to Israel, to Palestine.
That is really cool. And after the war, you guys didn't want to go to Israel, correct? You wanted to come here.
I was asked to join a sister and a brother that I was friendly with to come. They came to my workplace where I was working and they said, come with us, we are going to try to go to. And I just couldn't picture myself working on the land because I had trouble with my leg and I had a good job and I was accepted in Sweden and so they came twice and they said, well, we are leaving tomorrow, are you sure you don't want to come? And I said, I really don't think I can come. So.
And Papa, you didn't want to go to Israel either?
Well, I would have liked to go to Israel, but I didn't go for two reasons. Number one, I was so weak and in such poor health that I thought I needed medical care. And Israel, the country that was fighting the Arabs, didn't need sick people. They wanted strong people to help defend the country.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I didn't go.
Interesting.
See, most of them were not religious, there were a few.
Yeah.
And then this is from Erde, which is the area that I come from. This is from Kolozsvár, the next big city next to Marosvásárhely is Kolozsvár.
Oh.
My friend in school in Sweden was from Kolozsvár. So these are all people preparing. See how many organizations there were?
Yeah.
They all prepared to
I
go
bet
to
because there couldn't just be one organization because Jews just can't
No.
agree
No.
on that much. So
The
there had to be
problem
some.
is there's still so many organizations, they fight each other day and night.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
these were working,
Yeah, no, these are good organizations.
preparing to get out of there.
Mhm.
But it wasn't very possible to do that. It really was dangerous.
Yeah, I've heard stories of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But anyway, see all those. But there were some pictures of the city too, but you wanna borrow it?
Well, I don't really understand Hungarian,
No.
so I don't know how useful it will be.
No, and that's in German.
And that's in German, so
Yeah,
don't
but that
understand.
was really nice of that woman to put this book together.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
they
wonderful.
have a center there now for this, I thought it was 14, but I think she said there were more work camp around from Dachau.
Hmm.
And they were all coffering, working for a coffering.
I don't know what
I don't know what coffering was, I don't know anything about that, really. She tried to tell me, but I don't know. She studied in the United States too, but her mother tongue is German.
German.
Mm.
Well, I told you guys at Goucher, my Holocaust professors German.
Yeah. Is that so?
Yeah, she's,
Jewish?
No, she's not Jewish. I think she was born after the war.
Oh, yeah.
She's
Yeah.
married to, her husband is Jewish.
Oh, yeah.
And she specializes in the Holocaust,
Yeah.
film in the Holocaust, actually.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah, they
very
live,
intelligent
they live
woman.
with a lot of guilt,
Exactly, yeah.
which, of course, she can't help it.
Mhm.
She was born into it.
Mhm. Yeah, but she, I mean, I took so many classes from her, not only because I enjoyed the subject that she was teaching, but she is just such an engaging woman and
Yeah.
such an intelligent person. And I always thought it was interesting that we have this German
Yeah.
who's teaching Holocaust courses.
Yeah.
But she really, really liked it. And she's gone to Israel, she goes like every other year or something like that.
Mhm.
And her full study is Holocaust studies, but
Yeah.
her subcategory is film
Yeah.
and documenting history.
Oh, yeah.
And so she goes to the Israeli Film Festival, or tries to go every other year. And
Yeah.
she does. We watched a lot of movies about the Holocaust in her class, and we did a lot of comparative
Yeah.
things with that. So I learned a lot from her.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a lot to learn because every person who went through has a story.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, and she was the one who started this oral Holocaust history class at Goucher, where it's taught by 3 people. It's taught by her. She's the Holocaust person.
Yeah.
And then we have a storyteller, a professional storyteller,
Mhm.
and then a psychologist who has done Holocaust interviews
Mhm.
before. He was one of the interviewers for the Steven Spielberg project.
Oh, yeah.
And so the 3 of them taught this oral histories course.
Was it a class that you
At
got
Credit.
credit for?
Mhm.
Oh, that's
But
great.
not only that, it was Holocaust survivors in the area, in
Yeah.
our neighborhood.
Yeah.
We did in Baltimore. And we not only performed their stories at the school, but we went to synagogues in the area. We were asked to speak at schools.
Yeah.
And still they ask me to speak. I haven't said yes because I've been in and out of the country, but no, it's a different way of documenting
Yeah. Yeah.
stories, individual stories as well.
Can you imagine at the University of Minnesota they don't teach a Holocaust for credit?
Really?
Mhm.
Why?
And then they put it in with, in order to be able to have it at all, they are listed as genocide, Holocaust and genocide, which is 2 different things actually.
Well, I think the Holocaust was a type of genocide.
Sure it was.
Yeah,
Why is
but
it
I
different
mean,
thing?
the genocide there happened to other,
Yeah, so this
people
is part
too.
of a
but I think to
Genocide,
wipe
yeah.
out a whole culture.
Well, but I think
and-
that's the definition of a genocide.
Yeah,
But I think that's a very broad topic to have Holocaust
Yeah.
and genocide, because
yeah,
Darfur.
yeah,
and,
that's
like,
what I mean.
You could have full classes on all of
Right,
these.
right,
Yeah.
so,
That's
anyway.
unfortunate.
So you see Minnesota is still behind times in some things like that.
I don't know. I've been pretty proud to be a Minnesotan recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they are, we have a very good governor, really.
And our senators, both Amy Klobuchar
senators
and Al
Yeah,
Franken.
the 2
Mhm.
senators are really good too,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
There's this article, maybe a month or 2 ago, that compared Minnesota to Wisconsin,
Yeah,
or compared both of them, I guess. And the article was saying that the culture, the makeup of both states, the work that we do is all very similar. But this past big election, Wisconsin elected one of the most conservative
yeah,
right-wing governors,
yeah,
well, Minnesotans elected the most liberal Democratic governor, and they did a comparative of the
How it
economy,
did,
of
yeah,
jobs, education, and in all of these things, Minnesota was doing so much better than Wisconsin.
absolutely, that's right.
So
He had a surplus.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the unemployment is far down, it's 5% or 4% some. So that is very low compared to any of the states.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not a speaker and he's not a charming man, but
very
he
awkward.
works that's what counts really.
Mhm. Yeah, I was really nervous that he would not win. And
I
because I
hope
thought
he'll
he
win
was,
again.
yeah. But no, I'm happy that he was elected.
Yeah, he did very well, I really must say so.
Mm-hmm.
He's a liberal guy and he works for the state too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's a great example of how liberal policies are a positive thing.
That's right, they should really bring it about.
Exactly, like we have a surplus now.
Yeah, they don't make a big fuss about that. They should.
Mm-hmm. Same with Obama too. He's decreased our deficit as well.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah.
They don't say that.
Well, there are too many of these people who love football and guns. And
Yeah, the NRA.
yeah, that is really very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yes, I saw a little picture that said there are more regulations to make a teddy bear for kids than there is to buy a gun.
Yeah. Because
Toy
toys,
regulations.
yeah, they recall them if it has a round eye or
Yeah.
fake eye.
It has to make sure that it's safe for children and they can't choke or die from playing with it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah.
Mara, if you have to go,
Yeah,
because
I think I should go.
did Gary inquire whether Mara has to? What did Gary say on the phone?
Nothing important, I guess.
He didn't say anything about Mara, no.
He just called.
Yes.
Didn't ask about Mara?
I said Mara is here, I told
Yeah,
them,
yeah. But anyway, if you want to go out, it's now
6:30. Yeah.
6:30.
Yeah, I should
Are you
probably
guys gonna go out?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you call your
otherwise-
dad, yeah.
Yeah, I'll call him. Yeah, I have to
And see.
return the camera to Avi first, but
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's his camera. Yeah.
that's his camera.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How do
Thanks,
you
Al.
find driving in the snow?
The roads are all clear. What snow?
Yeah, that's true. They are